What's up, everybody? Welcome to our channel, Honest Hockey Takes. I'm Hoen and this is Scott. In this video, we'll be sharing the biggest trade targets heading to the trade deadline.
Yeah, guys, it's that time of year. We're pretty far into the NHL season. We're getting really close to NHL trade deadline. And at any moment now, between now and March, we could have a blockbuster trade. And for you guys today, we have 5 of the biggest players right now on the trade market. We're going to talk about them a bit. We're going to go over rumored places that they could be going, whether we think they will be traded, and what team we could see them on. And I'm going to start off here with one that is a very, very popular known target, and that is Mr. Bo Horvat of the Vancouver Canucks. Man, it feels like every day I'm on Twitter or on just the internet in general, someone's proposing something about Bo Horvat and where he's going to go. At this point, given the Vancouver Canucks situation, which we talked about in the past video that we just made, but it seems like almost guarantee this guy is going to be out of here. They can't really afford it. They've offered him lowball offers that have really not resonated well with him, and it seems like he is on the outs, almost guaranteed, especially knowing that they signed JT Miller already this offseason. The money just doesn't work. So, Hoen, where do you hear recently that you see Bo Horvat going?
2 teams in particular, Boston and Seattle.
Yeah, that's what I've been hearing a lot of.
And if he ends up going to Boston, I think that would be a great fit for him because I don't believe after this season, I don't believe Patrice Bergeron and Krejci will return to the team. So they do need a center for that team for the future. Unfortunately, when I look at the cap situation of the Boston Bruins, they're in big trouble because first of all, they don't have much cap. And second of all, they have a lot of expiring contract, but they're all the cheap players. They're all the bottom players, cheap players. Bergeron, which is only getting paid 2.5. Krejci's getting paid $1 million. Like these players, and it's just not enough. And they have to sign Pasternak.
Yeah, so, making the money work is going to be difficult for him, I think, for sure.
So I don't know how, because chances are the team is going to want to sign and trade. They're not going to.
No one's trading for this guy just off the assumption he won't re-sign. At least not of the guys that have been talked about, like Seattle or Boston. They want this guy for the long haul.
Yeah, because the rumors from the Boston Bruins is that Vancouver wants Lysell.
Fabian Lysell,
and they also want 2 other pieces with that, which is an enormous price tag to pay for the Boston Bruins. So if they're going to pay that type of price tag for it, they want to make sure they sign this player long term.
100%. That you don't do that for a rental. You don't give up Lysell for just a rental.
Exactly.
What about Seattle? What are you hearing now? Seattle?
Seattle can actually afford him. They have a lot of cap space.
They have so much cap room. I think they got over double digits and 10 plus million of cap space easy.
Yeah, and if he goes there, it's not much of a difference in landscape for him. It's Vancouver and Seattle are pretty much the same city.
Yeah, he just has to go a couple minutes south.
Yeah, so it shouldn't be a big adjustment, but he's playing on a significantly better team. So it'll be a good fit for him. It'll be a good fit for the organization because actually they could use another center on that team.
Both of those teams, it really makes sense. They're both in the playoff hunt. They're both really high up. Boston's the best team in the league right now, looking to just boost themselves even more over the top and kind of potentially get a guy that's a little younger for their future at center. And Seattle, it makes sense because this is why Francis didn't spend this money. This is why he drafted the team he did in the expansion draft, so he would have room to make moves like this when it mattered in the trade deadline. And I think that Seattle could be a real contender at this, and I've heard a lot from Seattle about going after Bo Horvat.
One question I want to ask about Bo Horvat is how much money do you think he's going to want?
Next year, given the career year, as much as I don't think he's personally worth this money, I think he's going to be asking for about 8 to 8.5.
So this is one of the things I would like to applaud the Vancouver Canucks for, is that they're not willing to sign this player for his outlier year, because right now he's scoring 30 goals. This is an outlier. He's never done this before.
They could never afford it. They're going to have to pay Pettersson big money eventually because he's on that bridge.
Yeah.
It's just not practical, especially with JT Miller getting $8 million, and you got to pay Quinn Hughes. Kuzmenko's going to get 6+. There's no way they could afford them all. There's no chance.
Nope. And I believe based on Jim Rutherford's interview, this is the first player to go out of the core.
So I guess that leaves one question for me then. What do you think the likelihoods he's traded before trade deadline?
Very high.
I think it's almost 100%.
100%.
Yeah.
He's gone.
I think he's gone.
They're not going to give him out for nothing, right? They want something back for him.
Yeah, they're not. Yeah. There's no way.
Yeah, there's no way. And the next player that we have coming up for the biggest trade candidate for leading up to the trade deadline would be Patrick Kane, one of my favorite players from the Chicago Blackhawks. He is not ready to make his decision until mid-February, which is a long time away from now. I would like to know, I have a feeling that he is going to get traded for the better of the team. I feel like he loves the city of Chicago. He loves the organization. He's played it for his whole life or his whole career. He's going to do what's best for the club. And I feel like the club wants to get some value for him leading up to the trade deadline.
Yeah, it feels like Patrick Kane probably was, for the last year, the most popular trade talk target come deadline. And that's kind of cooled off a little bit lately because, like Owen said, the decision is not exactly there. But I think right now the team that I would say has been most popular in the talks about Patrick Kane in the rumor mill would have to be the New York Rangers. Almost every single time I read about a potential Patrick Kane trade nowadays, it's the Rangers. And even at the beginning of the year, he listed a couple teams that he would actually be willing to go to, and the Rangers was right at the top of that list. Everything about it just makes sense. They have the ability to offer up good prospects and multiple first-round picks, which they need. They have so much in their system that they don't necessarily need to have on their roster, and they could go for it. This is a team that was in the Final Four last year. They won 2 games against Tampa Bay. They were pretty much almost in the Cup final. They just need that little extra to push them over the top. And I think Patrick Kane, for sure, with this roster they had, would be that little bit extra to help them. And I could totally see why they would want to target this guy.
Don't have to look very far in terms of the history book to see Patrick Kane and Artemi Panarin having that so insane chemistry.
Unreal.
Right? There's a very obvious reason why he'll be a fantastic fit for this team. And like Scott said, this team, New York Rangers, have all the assets in the world to trade for this guy. They got Kakko, they can trade Hito, they can trade Lafreniere, they can trade. I mean, I think they know now, the New York Rangers know now what these players are kind of worth and what their future ceilings are for these young guys. And I don't think in their head Lafreniere is that high. So I think they're willing to move Lafreniere, and actually Chicago can use a player like Lafreniere. It's a win-win for both sides.
No, I do think it's a great trade for both sides, and I could highly see that happening for sure. It makes just too much sense for like them to get younger in Chicago and for Patrick Kane to move on. I mean, he doesn't want to be on a team that's going to be like 20 games below 500. That's just not fun for anyone. That can't be enjoyable. The only thing is, right now it seems like he's considering whether it's worth staying there for his legacy to just finish his career with one team. I mean, we don't see very many players do it. You get the Ovechkins, you get the Crosbys, but maybe Patrick Kane does want to be like that. So I got to ask you, Hohen, what would you say right now as the odds he gets traded? Somewhere between very likely, not likely, or in the middle?
Probably, I should say, I want to say likely, but this is so hard to say because this guy loves the Chicago team too much.
I know.
But he's stupid to stay there. Like
it'd be awful to stay.
Yeah, if he decides to stay there, I'm like, why are you staying there for? This team's not going anywhere anytime soon.
At that point, it's just for his legacy.
It's stupid. What point in what legacy? Like this team's not winning for the next 2-3 years.
He already knows he has 3 Stanley Cups. It's not like he hasn't won it. He could just decide he wants to retire in that sweater. You never know. For me, I think it's in the middle. I think it's like 50-50.
If you look at teams like you said, Ovechkin with Washington, Washington's still a competitive team right now.
Yeah, they're still above 500. So is Crosby.
This team is a draft lottery team. Why would you want to stay there for this year? Like, it makes 0 sense.
It might depend on if his buddy Jonathan Toews leaves.
Oh, who cares about Jonathan Toews?
No, I know, but they're bros. You know, it might matter. Who knows?
I mean, Jonathan Toews. Just a quick. I know this is not a video. It's not about him, but I could see there's some demand for him if they're willing to take salary back, right?
Oh, both these players, by the way, like there would be salary retained, no question.
Yeah.
There's no way that Patrick Kane would get traded or Toews without salary retention.
Which they would be happy to do if they get the package back. Because
it's only 1 year.
It's only for 1 year as a rental player.
They don't care.
Yeah, they don't care. But I think Patrick Kane should do what's best for Chicago fans, for the city of Chicago, and get traded in this deadline.
Yeah.
And get some value back.
All right, next up for our big trade targets, I got Timo Meier from the San Jose Sharks. Man, it feels like this guy might have the most talk around him of all these players in the last couple weeks. It seems to be really heating up, and it sounds like there's 2 trade candidates who really are interested in his services. That being division rivals, the New Jersey Devils and the New York Rangers. And what's crazy about this is this guy would fit for both of these teams really well, and both these teams have the assets to give up to get him. I mean, we're talking about 2 teams that are very young. Like, these are both 2 of the 3 youngest teams in the league right now, the Rangers and the Devils. And they also have so many prospects in their system that haven't fully developed yet. For New Jersey, you got options like Alexander Holtz, you got options like Simon Nemec, multiple draft picks, just so much you can take. It's just unreal. They have young players, although some of them I'm sure they wouldn't want to give up. But, I mean, if you're going to get a guy like Timo Meier, who, by the way, is best friends with Nico Hischier, they're tight, they're both from Switzerland, it would just, everything about that situation would make a lot of sense to me. And then for the Rangers side of it, you got a team, once again, like we mentioned in the Patrick Kane thing, say they don't get Patrick Kane. Timo Meier might be a next second. I mean, you get a younger player who loves to shoot the puck. Right now, only I think Ovechkin has shot the puck more than this guy in the last 2 years. That's kind of wild. So this guy loves to fire. If he's with a good playmaker like Panarin, could you imagine Panarin to Meier? Oh my gosh, Panarin hates shooting. That's perfect. Give him a shooter. But no, seriously, they have guys like Lafreniere. They're willing to trade at this point. We've seen it. They've benched him. Kako, same thing. They're not sold on the guy. And if they really wanted to, they could do a bunch of picks and Kravtsov probably. I mean, San Jose is probably desperate, and I just think that both these two teams have a real shot at getting him. And I think at this point, I'd say by trade deadline, I think he's on one of these two teams.
Yeah, I mean, both of these teams have a lot of assets that can give up, and the cap. New Jersey has the cap space, and I cannot imagine how good New Jersey Devils will be with the addition of Timo Meier. But I believe if they were to make this trade happen, I believe Alexander Holtz, your favorite boy, is going to have to go the other way.
Oh, he's most likely in a package for sure.
Yeah, but I think that's a right move. If that is the case, I think that is the right move because I don't think Alexander Holtz is ready for the NHL still versus Myers, a very proven player. He's a terrific goal scorer.
Quick little story about this. This is actually too wild, and which makes me think it's actually going to be Timo Meier traded to New Jersey for Holtz. So Nico Hischier and Timo Meier, best friends, work out in the offseason together, same countrymen, all that. William Eklund, top prospect from Sweden for the San Jose Sharks, best friends with Alexander Holtz, same country. The switch just works too well for both teams. One team's trying to get younger, one team's trying to get talent for the playoff push. Everything about that deal involved would make so much sense. I know it's only rumors at this point, but it just matches too well.
Yeah, and another thing I want to hit on about the New Jersey Devils, they do need another shooter. They have a lot of good players on the team, Jack Hughes, Jesper Bratt, all these, Nico Hischier, a lot of good players, but they need that goal scorer, a marksman. They need someone that can snipe the puck in a net, and that's the guy they need. It would be a terrific addition for that team. Now, as for the New York Rangers, similar to what we said about Patrick Kane there, they do need one more elite right winger on the
Someone to play with Panarin.
The team is playing really, really well, though. But again, New York Rangers has all the assets in the world to trade for him. They got Kako, again, Kravtsov, all these players that they can trade Lafreniere.
So yeah, for this one, I'd say as far as to say, I think it's almost certain this guy gets traded before the deadline. I don't think Timo Meier is going to finish this year as a Shark. The only criteria will be is if when they're doing a trade, they can get a contract signed at the same time. Because I don't think people are going to trade a big package to get Timo Meier if he's not going to re-sign with their team. Pretty much they're going to have to do some sign and trade thing or have a verbal agreement that he will sign once traded.
Yeah, I agree with this one. 100% he'll get traded. And the next player that we have on the list is a defenseman, and it's from the Arizona Coyotes. It's Jakob Chychrun. Big fan of this player, actually. He's a good player. He had a very bad year last year. I had him in my fantasy hockey team. Didn't perform well at all. I thought he was going to rebound at some point. He never really did, which is a little bit sad. But ironically, the year before, he had a breakout year under Rick Tocchet. He was a very good player in that Arizona team that year. And right now, he's having a resurgent year. He's having a very, very good year. The problem with this player is that this is probably the most expensive player on this list that we have. Just by the fact that this player's cap hit is not very high. Mm-hmm. He's a number 1 to number 2 defenseman on any NHL team. And he's a young 24-year-old defenseman. He's got 2 more years left on his contract.
Oh, yeah.
That is going to make his price tag super, super high.
They want the world for this guy.
They want the world for this guy, and they should get the world for this guy. If they're not going to get the package for this guy, I don't know why they would want to trade this player, unfortunately. But right now, currently, New York Islanders is the one teams that are very, very interested in this player, and I have no idea why, because I feel like they need some more guys up front, like forwards on the team. Some offense. But let me ask you, where do you want to see this guy go if he were to get traded?
Originally, honestly, I wanted him to go to the Ottawa Senators, but I don't know now that they've had such a rough season if they're still in the market to buy his services right now. It would also take a lot from their prospect pool to probably get this guy. Probably a Ridley Gregg or a Shane Pinto type player to get this guy. And given the start by Pinto, I don't know if they want to do that anymore. The other team I've been hearing a lot about was the LA Kings, which this one makes a ton of sense. Doughty's getting up there in age. They kind of need a new guy to take over. I don't know if Durzi's meant to be a true number 1 defenseman. As a matter of fact, I think he's more of like a 2-3 guy. So it would make sense to get a guy like Jakob Chychrun. And this is also a team that's competing for a deep run in the playoffs. Like, I mean, they're second in their division. We know they've been in the playoffs before last year. It would make a lot of sense if they went to LA, and LA has a ton to offer. Whether it's guys like Turcotte, who hasn't necessarily worked out, they probably won't trade Byfield, but he is there as well. And they have several other prospects. I don't know if they want to mess with Brandt Clark because, I mean, this guy looks like he has a really good ceiling in the NHL, and I really love that player. But once again, between picks and players, they have so many options they could give up.
Yeah, I mean, the price on this guy is going to be mega hella expensive. If
they're going to want like 2 firsts and like some prospects probably.
And probably a high-end prospect like Brandt Clark. And if I am the LA Kings, I don't know if I would make that deal, unfortunately, because Brandt Clark is a very, very freaking good defenseman.
See, I'm more likely if I was Ottawa, if the trade rumors to Ottawa were true, I'd give up Shane Pinto. That sounds weird, but I mean, you already have so many goal scorers with guys like Norris, Batherson, Stützle, Tkachuk. Do you really need an extra goal scorer when you could get a real good defenseman that can play 25 minutes a night? I personally, if I'm an Ottawa Senators fan, I want Jakob Chychrun a lot more than I want a guy like Shane Pinto.
No, I agree 100%. They don't need all that offense. They already have so many.
Well, look at them now. Yeah. Look at this team. They're scoring goals like crazy and they're not winning. So, I mean, they got to make a move. Yeah, so honestly, I would really want this guy on my team. But realistically, Hohen, what do you think is the actual chances that he's traded before the deadline?
Very low. I just don't. I feel like the package for him would be too good. If the package is not good enough, they're not going to trade him. So I would love to see him go to Florida or Boston or something. But you know what? I just don't feel like those teams can afford him.
Yeah, so personally for me, I think he's one of the most high in demand in my eyes of this list because he's just a young, good, talented defenseman that really does it all, offensively, defensively. But I kind of agree with Hohen here. I think it's less likely than the other players on this list that he'll be traded just for the fact that it's already been a year of this. We've played this game with Jakob Chychrun. We've been waiting. He hasn't been traded yet. And it seems like they've had offers and talks for so long now. And just nothing's come to fruition yet. And I think it's something that gets dealt with more likely in the offseason. All right. And for our final player on this list of big trade targets, I know you guys probably thought we were going to forget about this guy, but no, we didn't. We have Erik Karlsson from the San Jose Sharks. Now, what we've seen this year so far from Erik Karlsson has been absolutely remarkable. Yeah, probably the number one bounce back candidate of the entire season, to be honest with you. I don't think anyone projected this guy to go from like 32 points to being a potential 100-point player this year. Absolutely wild. He looks just like the Erik Karlsson of Ottawa. But with that, also gives San Jose the opportunity to trade him. This team is clearly a bad hockey team. They're going to finish in the bottom 5 this year, almost certainly. They're going to be a lottery team, and holding this guy any longer is just a waste. This guy is making $11.5 million right now. This is the closest out these guys have ever had to get rid of them and save some of that cap space to move on with the future. If you had tried to trade this guy last year, teams on the phone would have been laughing at you. They'd be like, you want us to take this $11.5 million player and he's going to get me like 1 point every 2 games. No, thank you. I don't want to deal with it. But now, with this season, a lot of teams are calling and a lot of teams are interested. And we've just heard Erik Karlsson say recently in the news that he is willing to go to a contender. He is more than down. He said he wants to be a winner again. He doesn't want to be on San Jose losing games nonstop, being like 15 games below 500 by the end of the year. He wants to win. And that gives us some opportunity of this guy getting traded, depending on how much salary is retained. Hohen, what teams could you really think seeing this guy move to?
The biggest team so far that is reportedly interested in this player was Edmonton, actually. And hell no, I don't want this player on our team. No, thank you. This player is too expensive. We have too many expensive players on the team. And by the time, and we need to sign guys like Leon Draisaitl and all these big players down the road. There's just no way we can get this player. It also depends on how much San Jose Sharks are willing to retain on that salary. And he's still got like 4 years left on this salary, on his contract.
So recently San Jose has come out and given us some information on what they expect to get from Erik Karlsson. And let me tell you, I think it's kind of BS. I think it's terrible, and I think the Sharks need to really give their head a shake because it doesn't make any sense. They're expecting to get 3 first-round picks for this guy, and they're only willing to retain about 20% of his salary. I just don't believe it. I think these guys are smoking the good stuff. I don't think there's any chance that happens. And I think if they want to move this guy, they're going to basically have to accept either a really good prospect in a first, like a lot of these other players on these lists, and retain like 50% salary or at least 30%. Well, because they're not going to get 3 first-round picks for this guy.
No, and going back to what we said about Bo Horvat, I feel like he has. I know this player, Erik Karlsson, has proven this type of offensive elite potential before, offensive numbers before. But the thing is, I feel like he's also having another outlier year, where he's kind of having a crazy bounce back season. I'm very curious to see if he was on this team again next year. I want to see how he would do, because this player's 32 years old. He's not exactly young anymore. He can still skate, but the thing is, like, I would not want the Oilers, my team, to pick up this player with such an expensive contract and with that price tag, and just be a offensive player. With Edmonton, the last thing we need on the Edmonton Oilers, if anyone watch any Oilers games, we need a defensive defenseman. This is not the type of defenseman that we need.
Not the style you need.
It's not the style we need. We don't have Tyson Barrie. We don't have a defensive liability in Evan Bouchard. He can't even defend a beach ball. All he has is a good shot. Broberg is trying to find his game. We got Kulak is another player who's kind of like on the fence between an offensive defenseman as well, who can skate the puck. We don't need an Erik Karlsson on this team.
Yeah, so it really just doesn't fit their style.
No.
Honestly, to me right now, looking at all these big name targets on the market come trade deadline, I think Erik Karlsson is the biggest unpredictability. I don't think we can even guess where this guy's going to end up, or if he gets traded at all, because that money is just so high and so obnoxious that how much they'd have to retain for him and for how many years they'd have to retain it, it just doesn't seem practical for teams that are currently pushing for a Stanley Cup. All these teams like the Bostons, the Tampa Bays, the Toronto Maple Leafs.
No cap room.
They don't have cap room.
Yeah.
They're the best teams right now, and they don't have cap room. How are they supposed to afford bringing in a guy, even at like, say, 30% retained? You're still paying this guy $8 million.
Nope.
That's not practical, man.
Nope.
You would have to do some crazy stuff. You'd have to shed salary. They would have to take a guy back that has like a bad $5 million contract and retain salary, and then throw in, say, like 2 or 3 first-round picks to get them to do that. But that's really the only way this guy's going to get moved, is if someone has a lot of cap to dump and they're willing to give up multiple first-round picks.
I got a suggestion for you. It just popped in my head just now.
What do you got?
What happens if he goes to Seattle and retain 30% of the salary?
You know what's funny is actually that is a team I read about 2 months ago, but I didn't think much of it because I feel like almost everyone's thinking of Seattle. But it would technically make sense because they don't really have that much cap issues. Yep. Yes. They've saved all that money from being cheap when they were doing their expansion draft. They have like $20 million or something. It's ridiculous. Like, they got a ton of money. They could afford this guy, but what would they be willing to give up? Would they give up like a Shane Wright type prospect? Would they give up like a Seamus Casey and then some first round picks? Like, what would the package look like to get a guy like Erik Karlsson?
Yeah, because right now they're running the power play one with Vince Dunn and
he's been good.
And he's been good, but the thing is, he's Erik Karlsson. Everyone knows that. But the thing is this Seattle team in a win now state, and I just don't feel like they are. So I don't.
If I was Seattle, I wouldn't commit that much to a 32-year-old.
No.
It just doesn't fit what they are. He seems like a guy who has to go to a team that's more established and older. But that being said, if he does that, they don't have the cap room.
Yeah.
So this is a wait and see approach. I'm going to actually say this is on a lower end of happening, getting traded. As much as I think San Jose wants to trade him and get the top value, I don't know if it's likely because of the cap issues.
I think there's no chance this player's going to get moved.
None, eh?
None. Just because his salary cap is too high, and this team is being too greedy. Mike Greer's being too greedy on what he wants back for him.
Yeah, you're going to have to cut that offer back.
Yeah, that offer is
that's
like
a little
outrageous. Like, you take 20%, it's nothing.
No, 20% and 3 first rounders back, that's never happened.
Maybe if you ask Vancouver Canucks like 2 years ago, before they made the Oliver Ekman-Larsson trade, maybe they'll take him.
No, Peter Chiarelli might take that deal.
Oh yeah, Peter Chiarelli might take that deal.
But I hope you guys enjoyed this speculative episode on our 5 biggest trade targets, and I look forward to this trade deadline coming up soon in the future. Hopefully there's some big moves. Until next time, take care.
Take care, guys. Bye.